It's lights out and away we go, and Max Verstappen gets the better start from Fernando Alonso, and Lewis Hamilton away quickly too.
Hello Formula One fans, welcome back to Formula Pun Racer, and happy Independence Day, America! How are we enjoying it so far? I'm definitely having a good time, giving my salute to the Stars and Stripes of America, but let's begin with my review of the Canadian Grand Prix first, eh? When the lights went out and away they went, it was Red Bull driver Max Verstappen who started on pole to take it to the maximum potential to lead away. Fernando Alonso of Spain in his Alpine Renault started second. Unfortunately, 8 laps into the race, Verstappen's Mexican teammate Sergio Checo Perez's engine quit on him, which is unfortunate because that Red Bull became an overcooked piece of steak. Not exactly something his Mexican fans want to talk about. 12 laps later, Mick Schumacher of Team Haas ended up suffering the same fate as Checo, retiring and parking his car in exactly the same spot as Perez's Red Bull. It is unfortunate that, as a result, Mick Schumacher's race has been run. Since Charles Leclerc's Ferrari had a blown engine in Baku and needed to be replaced as his engine was broke beyond fixing for Canada, he endured a starting grid penalty, having to start all the way second to dead last, 19th to be specific. But as a result of an engine replacement, his Ferrari managed to snake his way all the way up to 5th place. Well done, Charles. As for his Spanish teammate Carlos Sainz, he had a few surprises in store himself, as he was hot on the tails of Alonso, Hamilton, Russell, and of course the leader Verstappen, who was leading by the midway point. But by then, the leaders had pit for new tires and fuel, and when the cycle of pits was complete, it was Carlos Sainz Jr. who inherited the lead. But with 21 laps to go, the yellow flag came out one last time as Yuki Tsunoda of Japan, driving for AlphaTauri, crashed into the tire barrier. It is unfortunate for the Japanese driver, the sun was set on his race. Carlos Sainz Jr. took this opportunity to pit one last time under yellow, to be on the same compound of tires as Max was on at that point, hard. Unfortunately though, despite this pit, Max took the lead despite the fact that the race was neutralized in position. Carlos Sainz was hot on his tail, so when the race went back to green for the final time, Carlos Sainz Jr. did all he could to stay on right behind Max Verstappen, DRS and all. But despite the fact having fresh tires and being on the DRS that reduces downforce and makes his car go faster in the straights, Max was still able to hold on to take another F1 victory and increase his lead in the Drivers' Championship. Congrats, Max, for taking it to the max. Carlos Sainz Jr. finished second, and with the result of his finish, it seemed likely a win was indeed in Carlos Sainz's future. Lewis Hamilton finished third for Mercedes, and his British teammate George Russell finished fourth. As a result of Carlos Sainz finishing second in Canada, well, the Red Bull team had an 80-point lead over Ferrari going into Canada, but with a second-place finish by Carlos Sainz, Ferrari was only able to knock 4 points out of their lead, so Ferrari was going to need a miracle when the next round was to be July 3rd in Great Britain, the same birthday as Sebastian Vettel of Aston Martin and Tom Cruise, to name a few. So let's go into how that went on July 3rd in Silverstone.
The British Grand Prix, and it's lights out and away we go. Sainz gets away well, as does Lando Norris, as does Lewis Hamilton, who's already ahead.
There are two things I have to mention before I get on with my review of the British Grand Prix. The following. The first notion is more serious than the other, is that 3-time Formula One world champion Nelson Piquet of Brazil has recently come under fire with the F1 community because sometime as a result of last year's British Grand Prix, he criticized Lewis Hamilton for causing Max Verstappen to crash in a way that must never ever be said. The reason he was doing that is because, well, his daughter, Kelly Piquet, is dating Max at this point. So, Nelson Piquet's daughter is, Max Verstappen's girlfriend. So, as a result of what happened last year at last year's British Grand Prix is that Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton collided with each other at Copse Corner on the first lap, putting Max in a very violent accident in the tire barrier, but fortunately he was not hurt. But the fact that Nelson Piquet addressed Lewis Hamilton in a way that must never, ever be said in a public manner, which he did, same way that Kyle Larson of NASCAR did exactly the same thing to himself during an iGame race back in 2020, getting himself fired from Chip Ganassi and in deep trouble with a lot of fans and whatnot. Well, as a result of what Nelson Piquet has said, shame on this champion for doing this, he has been permanently banned from the F1 Paddock as a result.
Enough. Boo! 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 Boo!
Yeah, shame on you, Nelson Piquet. If you have any comments about what you think about Nelson Piquet, please comment below, and I'd like to hear what you have to say. Do you forgive him, or do you completely hold it against him, or you have no opinion about Nelson Piquet's fiasco? I'd be happy to react to each and every one of your comments. On a lighter note, the day before the British Grand Prix on July 2nd, the latest formulaE round took place in the streets of Marrakesh, Morocco. Rocket Venturi driver Eduardo Mortara of Switzerland won the race. Second place went to Dias Techeetah driver Antonio Felix da Costa of Portugal, and Jaguar driver of New Zealand Mitch Evans finished third. As a result of Mortara's win, he is now 11 points ahead of Jean-Eric Verne, another Dias Techeetah driver, and, well, Jaguar is still fourth in team points, so I hope for all of you who own cats as well as love racing, hopefully your cats can be happy to know that Jaguar finished on the podium. For you fans of British racing cars, I'm sorry if you feel disappointed about how Jaguar fared in Marrakesh if you think third place isn't good enough, but you'd be super duper disappointed if you haven't found out yet how Aston Martin fared in Canada. Formula One's first race in Canada since 2019 after the pandemic occurred. It can be said Sebastian Vettel of Germany finished 12th outside the points, while Lance Stroll, the local boy from Montreal, Canada, barely managed to finish in the points in 10th spot, getting 1 point for himself and the team. So at least that's something to be proud of for Lance, even though Nicholas Latifi, he finished 16th, the other Canadian, so no doubt he's on his way out from Williams, so who knows if he can find a ride in Formula One next year, eh? I gotta say, given the pitiful performance the Aston Martin F1 team has been putting on, and how disappointing it is to all its fans, I'd say we have a better chance at seeing Lawrence Stroll, the CEO of the company, cooking matzo ball soup in a Japanese schoolgirl uniform than we do of seeing them win a race. To add insult to injury to Aston Martin is the fact that they did not qualify well on home soil and ended up starting in 18th and 20th position respectively. Pretty embarrassing for us Aston Martin fans, especially in jolly old England. But when the lights went out and the green flag flew, it was Carlos Sainz Jr. on pole with Max Verstappen starting second, but only a few hundred feet into the race from the finish line, a 5-car pileup ensued, which brought out the red flag, and it all began with Pierre Gasly of AlphaTauri trying to find a hole between Guan Yu Zhou of Alfa Romeo and George Russell of Mercedes. Unfortunately, he misjudged that hole. It was too narrow, and he ended up pitting George Russell right into Guan Yu Zhou's right rear, which flipped the Alfa Romeo over onto its upside down, across the gravel trap, and over the tire barrier. And I gotta say, Guan Yu Zhou was okay after that, mostly thanks to that halo, considering the roll hoop was torn off completely as he skidded across the gravel trap, completely upside down all the way. And it took them some time to extract him out of the car because the car was not at a good angle for the rescue teams to get him. Jolly good sport, though, to George Russell for stopping his damaged car to check on Guan Yu Zhou right afterwards, as his car was damaged. In addition, Alex Albon of Williams didn't have it so good either, because when he reacted to the crash, he was rear-ended by Vettel's Aston Martin, which put him into the wall, and then ended up being bombarded back and forth like a pinball between Yuki Tsunoda of Alfa Romeo and Esteban Ocon in the Alpine Renault. That for sure brought out the red flag. That had to be pretty scary. Fortunately, nobody was hurt.
Thank God.
When I was watching the race initially, I was wondering why was the race stopped for so long. At first I began to think it couldn't possibly take them that long just to clear the cars away. And I thought to myself eventually, what are the organizers out for tea or something? Like this? Ew, but of course. But I would think entertaining 400,000 spectators is more important than hitting the spot with a cup of tea. I eventually figured out why, and it's because there were a bunch of environmental protesters who managed to break through the barriers and walk onto the track during the red flag, and they could have gotten run over as such, which is a ridiculous way to protest for our Earth's environment. And while we appreciate their support, and people like Lewis Hamilton and Vettel would side with these protesters in their way, this is uncalled for. This is not how they should protest, by running onto a track like this, especially when it's live, because this kind of trouble occurred once in 2003 at Silverstone when some ridiculous Irish priest, of all people, would run onto the hangar straight running towards inches away from racing cars at top speed. And what was this moron thinking, I think to myself. He was just fortunate that he didn't get crushed or ran over to death. Tackled. And so 7 environmental protesters were arrested because of this fiasco, which explains what took them so long to go back from red flag to green flag. But when the green finally came out, Carlos Sainz Jr., the pole sitter, maintained his lead in the race. And then eventually, Charles Leclerc would be right behind him. So it was a Ferrari 1-2 for the majority of the race. And Lewis Hamilton and Sergio Perez in their Mercedes and Red Bull, respectively, wouldn't be too far behind. But as for Max Verstappen, things went promising to awry as an end plate piece of debris from one of the AlphaTauris got wedged underneath the floorboard of his Red Bull, which made the car handling pretty difficult. But Max wouldn't give up, but his chances of winning were practically done. This, in turn, increased Carlos Sainz's chances of winning his first race. In his 150th start, he already got his first F1 pole at Silverstone as a result. But with 13 laps to go, with the Ferrari still leading solidly, Esteban Ocon's Renault, stopped right before Cop's corner, and he might have crashed into Alexander Albon at that 5-car pileup start, but he was able to limp around to get his car repaired for the restart. But his engine was done for with 13 laps to go. By then, the cars were under yellow flag conditions, and the leaders pitted, especially Leclerc, but some strategic moves in the pits for Ferrari didn't do well for Leclerc, and while Carlos Sainz, Checo, and Lewis Hamilton were all on soft tires, for some reason, Leclerc ended up anything but soft, which would be a no-brainer for any driver who, with less than 10 laps to go in a race, because soft tires are the fastest compound of tires in this form of racing, but they wear out easier. So it's almost useful for short laps to have the fastest laps and all that, which they would be. But what bugs me even more is the fact that the Aston Martin team strategists must have been whacked out on crack, because for one thing, when Lance and Seb pitted, they were anything but on soft tires, so they could have had a much better points position in the race. But once again, the Aston Martin team strategists were not using their brains on home soil. Unbelievable. Pretty lackluster results for Aston Martin, I must say. 11th place for Lance, but at least Sebastian Vettel finished in the points in 9th place, 2 points for himself and the team. But more amazing was what would happen ahead of him, that he got a front row seat on the final lap. He saw his fellow countryman and friend, Mick Schumacher, the son of Michael Schumacher, duke it out with Max Verstappen for 7th. Unfortunately, Max bested him on the final corner, but still, Mick Schumacher takes his first points finishing race ever by finishing in 8th spot. And it is said that Sebastian Vettel yelled from his own car, "Go, Mick, go, go, go!" And by God, he did. So, not a bad birthday gift for Seb Vettel, for himself to finish in the points and see his friend and countryman finish in the points for the first time, and they gave each other a big hug. So, with that said, I say, happy birthday belatedly, Sebastian Vettel, on finishing in the points, and congratulations, Mick Schumacher, on getting your first points finish ever in your career. I wish you luck in the upcoming rounds that awaits. But when all was said and done, the winning driver would take his first career victory in his 150th start. Carlos Sainz Jr. of Spain, only the second Spaniard to win an F1 after Fernando Alonso. Checo of Red Bull finished second. Lewis Hamilton of Mercedes third. And the Ferrari driver of Charles Leclerc, a disappointing fourth. If it weren't for the screw-up in the team strategy, Leclerc felt confident that he could have finished on the podium. No doubt he was voiced his opinion about how bad it was that he ended up being reprimanded by his boss, Mattia Binotto, about this. I just hope that they can do better in the future. But as a result of Team Haas finishing in double points in 8th and 10th with Mick and Kevin Magnussen respectively, this has pushed Aston Martin back down to 9th in points in the Constructors' Championship. As a result of Ferrari's first and fourth place finish in Britain, the deficit between Red Bull is now reduced to 63 points. So there's still a long way to go, but it's great to see Ferrari chip away at Red Bull's dominant winning ways in the Constructors' title. Max Verstappen still holds the driver's lead as well. So the next round would be July 10th. On Red Bull's home soil, the hills are alive with the sound of Formula One racing. Can Max Verstappen come back from a disastrous Silverstone to take another victory in Austria for Red Bull? Can the prancing horse gallop past the charging bull? Or can Aston Martin actually get some brains with their strategic maneuvers and do much better for Lance and Seb, if not win one? Only time will tell in Austria. Well, this concludes my video review of the Canadian and British Grand Prix. And I also like to say, while it is America's birthday, July 4th, I also like to wish His Majesty, Prince Michael of Kent of England, a happy 80th birthday. I hope you have a great birthday day, Your Highness. Greetings from the United States of America as we also celebrate America's birthday as well. You may not get fireworks or backyard barbecues like we Americans usually do at this time of year, but I hope you have fun today. And congrats to the Team Haas of America for finishing in the points in Silverstone as well. Well, God bless America, everyone. Let freedom ring, and thanks for watching my videos. Please like and share to subscribe to my channel, Formula Pun Racer, for more content. And let's see what happens when F1 strikes again in the hills of Austria. Goodbye, everyone. I'm Aaron Cylinder, firing on all cylinders.